that's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Keep that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Yahola Tiger.
What's going on, guys? I ain't gonna lie. My intro, when it hits that little bass riff, I'm like, oh yeah, it's time to go. Let's go. But what's going on, guys? And welcome to a live stream of the Warcry podcast, only on YouTube. We're just we're hanging out today. I got no kids, no wife, and I'm sitting there on the couch. I'm watching, what was it? What is it? It's with the Henry Cavill. Ungentlemanly warfare or something like that. Tactics of a ungentleman. I can't even say it. And I'm sitting there hanging out watching that movie, and I'm like, it's all right. It's decent. And it dawned on me. I said, I can go live. I can go live, guys. So I was like, let me do it. And one thing, if you guys hadn't noticed, I am not on Facebook. So, so if you're typing in Warcry podcast and you listen to old episodes and you're like, where can I find this guy? I've had like 6 people be like, man, I can't find you. You're a mystery. Well, I am a mystery. But I'm on TikTok and X and YouTube, Patreon. I'm there, guys. All you gotta do is send a message and I'm there. It may take me some time to answer, but I'm there. Or the email. It's all down in the description. But just giving y'all something light today. Just something easy. I almost called this the Sunday Scaries, but I don't know if it's scary. It's nice out. It's like 70 degrees. But we just had an episode drop a couple days ago. If you guys hadn't heard it, it's a personal story of mine. It's very long. It's a 42-minute long story. So just imagine me trying to sit here and tell someone this story. It's got to be under like dim lights, just something a little creepy. But in that story, go listen to the episode, but I'm going to give you a little preview if you haven't heard it. I think I met the devil. That's my conclusion. He wore a black kind of cowboy outfit, boots, and a cowboy hat. And honestly, as the years have rolled on, I have, like, in my head, he looks like Rip. Like from Yellowstone. He just looked like him. I mean, the face was different. It's kind of more of a slim face. But yeah. I think that's who I met. But go check that episode out and see. Let me know what you think, because I'm also kind of curious too. If like anyone, have you guys have ever had, any, type of story or encounter that's met someone like that? Because I had a conversation with Patrick Meekin, on the podcast, and he goes in deep about the Masons. I have went deep into the Masons, and I'm not. I don't know. I've known Masons. Every time I bring it up to like family, oh, you got, so and so down here, down at the old Piggly Wiggly, works cashier. His grandfather, they're good people. Hey, I'm not hating. I'm really not hating. But there's some things going on with that type of entity, organization. If they're a Mason, listen to this. I fill me in. Let me know, because I am under the opinion that y'all are doing some things that's just kind of suspect, I guess you could say. But let's see here. We got Candy here for the live. Can't wait. Good to hear from you. I appreciate you being here. Jose Gonzalez, hey, how you doing today? Jose, I am doing fantastic. I have no kids and no wife. Everybody's out the house. It's quiet. You know, I put on a few movies. I'm going to review here in a little bit. Got to enjoy my morning. It was nice. It's been a good day. I hope you're doing all right, Jose. Dang, I like this name, Deer Sausage. That's crazy. This is my second comment. He is eat my first one. I guess I ate it. I ain't gonna lie, man. Being a dad, this is something I was telling my buddy. He has no kids. I said, dude, when I had my first kid, my oldest, I didn't realize, like, I was still working out, still doing, playing basketball a little bit, after work. But that second kid hit, man, that's like, whew. I'm in husky boy territory now. I'm in big back territory. I'm in cut the bacon off your back, fat, territory. But that's all right. I still got my voice, and these kids run me ragged, but that's all right. But as you guys can see by the title of this live, we're going to be talking about some ghosts. And I'm going to give you a little bit more background on episode 93 that just dropped on Friday. I'm going to give you a little bit more stories kind of surrounding that house, and also to the people involved. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with this certain set of people. And also more background, like I said, on the house, because I think that there's something to the dad or the grandfather, still haunting that place. That I think it's very interesting. But let's see here. This was Friday, but on the day that we left at like midnight. And this is in the episode. One thing that I always have a weird feeling about, Kayla's house. We stayed there multiple times, and I always got bad kind of vibes from it. And her little brother, he always, was in his sleep talking to somebody. So like, there was one time we were sitting on the couch, and the way I sleep is weird, but I just wake up, for whatever reason, and then I got to pee, and I'm like, all right, let me go ahead and take care of business. And I'm looking, and I see somebody's kind of the back of their head and like their back, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? What's happening? And so I kind of look in the room, and I'm kind of it's real dark, just a little bit of nightlight in the corner. And as I'm making my steps towards the doorway, I kind of open that door just a little bit, and I kind of peek my head in, and I hear murmuring. It's like he's talking to somebody. He's like, no. Yeah, I don't even know. I'm like, what is he saying? I was getting kind of creeped out. I was like, what is he saying? I was thinking maybe, we always play pranks on each other, and we was always messing around with each other, messing. And so I'm thinking maybe that somebody, like, they're about to do something. They're about to pull a prank on somebody. So I'm kind of like really trying to listen. And I kind of get a little bit more in the room, and I look, and there's nobody there. There's nobody in that corner, in that closet. And I remember the next morning, I told her, my friend, I said, your brother was in there talking to somebody. And she was like, no, yeah, I mean, weird things have been happening, but I don't think so. And her dad, later on, I started asking him, I said, is there something weird with this house, where they lived? And he was like, man, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on here. And so I asked him, I was like, what kind of weird stuff? And he's like, well, there'll be some times I'm working in the office. It's the middle of the day, no one's home, and I'll get up and go to the bathroom or get something to drink, and I come back and my snow globe, it looked like someone had shook in the snow globe. Had just like shook it up real hard and put it back exactly where it was. And he's like, man, that's weird. He said, but I don't. Maybe I'd nudge the desk, and he was a bigger guy. You know, sometimes us big back people, man, we move, but we don't know our own strength sometimes. And so he's like, well, maybe I had bumped the desk, and it kind of sent those little flakes in there flying. And he went back down, started working again, and he got up to leave the room, make a phone call. And he come back, and his pen, it looked like it had been moved over there by the snow globe, because it's over there kind of the corner. He thought it was weird. He's like, what is it? He's like, okay, so there's something, it's haunted. So he was telling me, he's like, this place is haunted. And so as we get closer to this trip to Houston, I'm kind of already starting to notice weird things in terms of, like, my friends being like, oh yeah, I had a dream about my grandpa last night. And I'm like, wow, that's sad. She lost her grandpa. But like at the same time, it's like, okay, what else? Just keep asking, because that's one thing about me, is I just can't stop asking questions. If something interests me, then I'm going to continue to ask questions and try to figure out, maybe, in my mind, I'm always trying to debunk the supernatural, or the paranormal, or things that go bump in the night. I'm always like, yeah, it could be this. And I get that from my mom, because my mom's that same way. When anything spooky was happening around my parents' house, she always was, well, it could have been a raccoon that was in the tree and, fell off and broke a tree limb. So it was always trying to debunk the supernatural. So I asked her, I said, well, what else has been going on? And she's like, well, for a couple times, I feel like I'm laying in bed, and there's like a indention, as if someone's sitting at the edge of my bed at night. And she always was like, yeah, and it's weird, because, like, when I try to move the covers, it's like someone is sitting on the covers. I'm like, yeah, like someone's sitting at the edge of your bed, and you're trying to pull the covers over you, and you can't. It's like, if you had somebody laying on top of something, you're trying to move it and you can't. And she's like, yeah. I said, how many times? Like, what is? She, oh, a few times after he passed, and I would just kind of ignore it, but then I started kind of being like, Grandpa? And she's like, that's him. I know it's him. And I'm like, I don't know about that, because where that house stood, just a little bit over, they did find artifacts, native artifacts in that area. And then she said that at the time that they had to, like, excavate, because this is kind of a newer, at the time, this is kind of a newer housing addition. So I remember her saying stuff like that and being like, yeah, but I would talk to him. I'm like, talk to him? Nah. What would you say? And she said, oh, I just ask him how he's doing, where he's at. I'm like, that's off. And so these stories that she was telling me about, these times about her grandpa coming and visiting her before this trip to Houston, I thought that was really weird. And so, if you haven't listened to episode 93, that's a little preview intro, kind of behind before the episode. One thing I hate about TV shows is, like, in the middle of the show, they're like, let's hit a flashback of something that happened 10 years ago. And then at the very end, they, like, tie in that little, that part of the episode that, oh, it makes sense now. It's like, yeah. But episode 93, Dead Man's Bed, I did meet a stranger, and I think my conclusion is that he was the devil. And the things that this man knew about me was weird. Like, no one, little details, intricate details about my life and people around me's life that he knew. It kind of reminded me of a story of Rod from Lodge Tales. He was telling me a story about the Goat Man, and that basically he's kind of an alcohol spirit to natives, and he would basically go into bars and just be drinking, just getting sauced up, and everybody in the bar is getting, crazy drunk, and they always see, he's always got money. Like people look and it's like, oh man, my beer's filled back up. So there's weird things, and he told me that story, and that kind of reminded me of that. I had someone else tell me a story about a I guess a Catholic priest, or some type of church person, was trying to get kind of tempted by somebody who they didn't feel was right. But yeah, it was creepy, and the things that kind of happened afterwards. I never think about it really until I start thinking about it, and then I'm like, okay. And we had another trip, and eventually I'm going to do a part 2, but I'll give you a little preview of so I made 3 trips to Houston, and at that time, so it was like Huntsville, and we stayed in that house twice, and then we stayed in the Woodlands, just about outside of Houston, in the kind of the suburbs. And the third time, I'm just in the wrong place at the wrong time with a lot of stuff, because I should have never been in that situation. I was an idiot, in my early 20s, just messing around at night, trying to go and watch. I believe it was like the NCAA tournament or something, at this bar and grill that was kind of off this waterway, and dang, I could have got killed that night, And I'll eventually I'll tell the full story, but that'll be on another part. But I had somebody stalking me from kind of the walkway as I was walking back to the apartment we were staying at. And sometimes too, like I always get kind of like in my own head about these stories, and I'm like, because part of me doesn't really want to believe it, because in the moment, it's like the adrenaline hits, and it just like makes me like almost like a focus that I have, and like, I'm trying to get out of this situation. That's just like my self preservation, I guess. But yeah, that was definitely one of the scary. That was probably one of the scariest moments um, in my life, that third trip in Houston. But people coming in and out of the chat or in and out of the live, let me know. Put it in the comments. Where you're from, and I know we have a lot of different people jumping in and out. It's a Sunday. It's 2:00. I know people, trying to get their walks in, walking the dog. But I thought I'd come on here and just share some stories and just hang out. While I'm thinking about it, I guess. So I have the movie club from Cinemark here locally in the Tulsa area. I got it for my birthday, which my birthday was like a week ago. I didn't really say nothing. Birthdays are kind of weird for me, but I have been on a binge watching movie tirade, I guess you could say, over the last few weeks, maybe. And so I went and seen a movie called Black Bag with Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. It's a spy movie, espionage movie. The movie itself was pretty good. There's a few things that I'm like, but it's in theaters right now. I gave it a 4 stars on Letterboxd. I need to start putting my Letterboxd down there. I need more friends on Letterboxd. See what y'all rate and stuff. But I think it's Warcry Pod on Letterboxd. But I just review movies and give my opinion about them on there. Another movie that I just saw last night, and I got a couple opinions about it. So if you guys have not seen Anora, it's on Hulu right now or Disney Plus, whichever one you have. Anora it was different. I love the original. I love original movies. I love the fact that they're like, hey, let's basically do a kidnap movie, but like kind of funny about Russians. And it's about this girl who is a prostitute, sex worker, whatever you want to call it, and call girl, stripper, whatever. And she meets, like, it basically kind of details her messing around with all these guys, and then it ends up meeting this Russian billionaire's son, and they basically go through a boyfriend girlfriend. I'm going to pay you to be my girlfriend type thing with her, and she starts falling in love with this guy, and this guy is is an idiot. Now he's literally an idiot. He's a billionaire's son. He has no social skills. He pays for everything. All his experiences are superficial, but she has real life experience because she's poor, and she has to struggle, and she has to do these things, and she goes throughout the entire movie in this kind of mirage that she thinks he loves her, and it's kind of sad because it's like her come up, but the ending, my God, the ending that just took the whole movie away from me. I almost was gonna give it 4 stars, but then it tapered off, and like she starts having sex with like the bodyguard, and I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, and it ends with her crying on his chest. Which, hey, understandably, you were kidnapped and forced to be divorced to this Russian billionaire's son. I get it, but like, man, the hijinks that goes on, just it's funny. Now that movie won a few, I believe, Oscar awards. Come on now. It doesn't need to. It does not need to. It's it just wasn't on that level. I think Mickey Madison won best female actress, which she does good character work in that, with her accent and things like that, but yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it was a solid movie, but it wasn't really that great. But what other movies I've seen? This is off the dome here. I finally got to watch The Killer's Game with Dave Bautista, and Drew McIntyre from WWE, Terry Crews. Batista, in his own, to me, he is a good actor. He's a solid actor. But one thing that drives me nuts about him is that his face doesn't change. So like when he's acting sad, it's like the same look. I love him. I'm a Dave Bautista super fan. Group from Guardians of the Galaxy, for those who don't know. But it drives me crazy when he doesn't there's no facial. There's no he's sad or mad or whatever. It just drives me crazy. But that was a good movie. I gave it three stars, 3.5 stars based on the plot, and I think that they're gonna do some sequels. I just watched that this morning in my free time, y'all. But a few other movies off the top as I watched Cuckoo with Hunter Schafer. Back in February, I watched that movie. It's on Hulu now. That movie is kind of wild, and it does give me some native vibes to it. Now it's all white people, and it's from like Bavaria, but Hunter Schafer and Cuckoo was cuckoo. Nah, it was cuckoo for real. There's some weird breeding stuff, like breeding humans with these creatures in the forest. Weird stuff going on. Hunter Schafer, I'm becoming slowly, it's kind of weird, trans, very outspoken about it. I don't really care about any of that stuff, but I know people get mad about that. But as an actor, Hunter Schafer is killing it. That perfection. Euphoria, I think season 3's coming. I can't wait for that. That's going to be fire. But we are, I mean, as a society, I guess we're moving forward on a lot of things, and so I don't really care as long as you're a good actor and you got good movies. It doesn't bother me. But the next show that I've watched is Severance season 2. I'm almost done with it, but one thing about that show is it drives me. It's another show that drives me crazy because it's so we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what the company stands for, what product they're putting out. We just are existing in this time, in this world where people are basically sent down an elevator and their mind turns off. They're switched off. This is on Apple TV Plus, and they just work. and we don't know what they're working on. Now, we did get some reveal that it's some project that Mark S is working on. And I heard that the season finale was crazy this past Friday. I haven't seen it yet, but I would definitely recommend Severance. And definitely recommend Severance. One thing too about the guy that plays Mark S, he's always been a kind of a funny actor, so it's weird to see him in this kind of serious role. And him do these types of roles. It is kind of, it's interesting. It's definitely different. Are there any? I'm just kind of curious if there's any movies that you guys have enjoyed watching over the past, I guess maybe 2 months. Any shows that you guys have watched? Recommendations. We cut off Netflix this past, or what was it, 2 weeks ago, and then we're cutting off Disney Plus and Hulu. Netflix's movies, the Electric State came out. I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that my money is not paying to see that 2-pack of ass. I heard Snow White's bad. The new Snow White movie is terrible, and so I'm cutting back on all the streaming stuff right now. I think we have Apple TV Plus, AMC Plus with Shudder, Amazon. A couple Shudder movies that I've watched. There was one called Starving Acre with Matt Smith, Doctor Who, or what's his name from House of Dragons, Damon. He was pretty good. It's kind of a psychological thriller. A couple loses their child to some old world magic, and they're trying to figure it out. And it's kind of a hallucinating. It's not really like it's like a euphoric type state, but it's a pretty good movie. I gave it 3 stars. I watched a movie called The Dead Thing, which was kind of wild. I might have mentioned this before, but it's about a girl who has sex with a ghost. Kind of crazy, weird. Another movie that I watched, Shudder. Shudder is pretty, or AMC Plus is pretty underrated when it comes to their horror movies. They do a pretty good job with those movies. But a movie that was just like, I don't understand why y'all made this, was called Little Bites on AMC Plus. This movie, the body horror was good, but the demon made no sense. And the ending made no sense. It does involve people getting eat. Like they get ate. It's kind of nasty. But it's kind of weird. It's a weird movie. It has a lot of horror people, and Cher, the singer Cher produced it, executive producer. But that was a solid movie. I gave it, I think, a 3, maybe 2.5. So if you guys have noticed in the chat, there is a goal. And 10 super chats, I'm going to be doing an episode specifically over skinwalkers. So I don't care 25 cents, it doesn't matter. It's just 10. That's kind of my goal I'm setting. Is if I can get 10 super chats, I'm going to dedicate a specific episode. So you give a super chat, we get to our goal. The next episode for that super chat will be a skinwalker episode. Now this leads into the Tulsa Skinwalker, as you guys can tell in the title. That story is a very, very long story, and it encompasses almost 6 months of my life, in my professional life. The people who experience this are still here, and it does involve the new way of magic. Is that what I want to say? The person who I think was doing this, that's all alleged. I'm not going to put anybody out there. And I might have to make it a members only to kind of keep some privacy parts, because I'm going to be given a lot of details. But this person who I was around, they practiced Cherokee medicine and Appalachian medicine, like hill country medicine, or magic, I guess you could say. And they were doing things that weren't good. and this person was also trying to get into the Masons as well. So there was a lot to this story. It's a very creepy story. It's something I dealt with for a while. I would, when the apartment that we were staying at, I was seeing shadows, like they were watching, and then I'd look over because you kind of see these shadows in like the peripheral, like not right, like right where you just almost can't see. And I would see something standing there, and I'd look over, and there's nothing there. And so there was a lot of, behind. I don't know if it was behind my back or behind the other person that's involved's back. Things being done to them that was weird. And I'll tell part of the story when I had to just lay it out. Like, you need to cut this out. Like, this is it's about to go down a certain road that it may not be able to come back from. And so, but yeah, if we can get 10 super chats, I'll drop that episode. It's going to be a recorded episode because I'm going to take my time doing that. Actually, part of it's already recorded, honestly, but I have to go up and touch it up. But there was also a little part of that story that is really kind of weird. And when it comes to the person's wife and them seeing what looked like a person, a really kind of tall person, really skinny, with a dog's head or wolf's head. So that's coming. If we can get 10 super chats on this live and afterwards, I think I'm going to put it up for a couple hours. We'll do that. And then the YouTube membership, I think is like $1.99. I'm gonna have a lot more interviews on there. I'm trying to work out my schedule when it comes to that. I'm thinking about trying to get some WWE content on here as well, just a little bit. WrestleMania is coming up in here in the next couple weeks. And there's a lot coming. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be talking about. I probably will talk about my experience with the Tulsa Witch in that whole month-long ordeal when I was maybe in my mid-20s. That was a trip. I've seen things that that's one thing I have a hard time divulging about. My life is trying to tell these stories without giving away locations, because I'm like, when I tell these stories to people in my daily life, or I'll mention it, I give the full detail. I don't hold back. But when it goes out into the YouTube and there's people all over the place, they may catch it, and I don't want that smoke. I don't really I really don't want that smoke right now. I got little ones, but I was dealing with somebody who invited me to a meeting, I guess you could say, and they wanted me to partake in this meeting. And this kind of goes back to the story in episode 93, and I'll tie all this in when I drop the episode. But it was they wanted me to basically show up and then, I don't know, take something or drink alcohol or something, because one thing that they're telling me is that alcohol, when you're messing around with this stuff, it makes it easier for it to consume you. Like, it makes it easier for people to kind of be persuaded and whatnot. And so I'll have that coming up to that episode. Episode 100 is coming. One thing about episode 100 is I don't know what to do for the 100th episode of the podcast. I've had people say they wanted interviews. I've had people say they want stories. I think I might reach out to a few buddies, a few friends, and we'll tell some spooky stories or something. You never know, Rod. If Rod ever listens to this, hey Rod, man, we might have to run it back. If you guys have not heard those episodes, he tells some of the scariest stories. And the first story he told on my podcast, I think it was episode 73, 74, whichever episode, but it's Rod from Lodge Tales. He tells a crazy story about kind of a shapeshifter was messing with him. And they sent a messenger to let them know something was coming. So, yeah, it was a really great episode. Let's see here. Co Lobo. I guess I'm assuming Colorado Lobo. A dog's head, dude. I'd effing die seeing something like that. When he told me what happened the day before, I kind of got goosebumps. I ain't gonna lie. And he was shook. He was mad and he was shook when his wife was telling him that this was happening while he was gone at work. He was really upset, like really, really upset. And he asked me what I could do. And that's for the story. That's when you guys will find out. But Mr. Lobo says, run it back for sure. Yes. I've been needing to get a hold of him. I'll text him. We talked a couple months ago when he was trying to get some content when it came to the Halloween special we did. But guys, go check him out. Res Scares. And if you're on Facebook, it's Original Ghost Stories of the Res. Miss LaVon Rodriguez has that. You'll see some pretty crazy stories on there. There's some older, native people who has seen some pretty crazy stuff. And Miss LaVon had a story, and this is on the channel, about seeing a clown, dancing around on the playground at night. And carnival music. It's a crazy story. I believe her. She's seen a lot of stuff, and she also tells a morgue story about one time in a hospital. There was some kind of crazy stuff. And then I had Miss Rebecca. She was on Bigfoot at the Casino. On the members only part of that, the prequel is on members only. And then the regular whole interview is on just the regular YouTube. And it's under Bigfoot at the Casino. Now, with that story, if you guys haven't, if you're late, you're about 25 years late. There was a Bigfoot caught on camera at Lucky Star Casino in Concho. At the time, there was a lot of elders who did not want that coming out. They absolutely did not want it coming out. Well, allegedly, I'll say this, allegedly, they didn't want it out. And they burned it, allegedly. Now, I don't know if they burned it, but people got a hold of that tape. And that tape is out there. I haven't seen it, but there have been people who have come forward to me and said that they have seen it. This has been a 2-year process and 2-year journey to try to find this information. About a year ago, a friend of the show reached out and he said, I am the security guard who's seen the footage. And the story takes off. Eventually, I want to put those two together, have Miss Rebecca come back on, and she has some other stories that's going to be a members only. I need to get a hold of her. But she has a lot of crazy stuff that's happened in her life, and she's trying to maybe put some distance on a little bit of some of it. But I'll have to reach out to her. But there's a lot of on that members only part of that Bigfoot at the Casino. There are details that have never been shared to the public, that only these people have seen it. Now, Miss Rebecca tells some of them. Miss Rebecca, if you haven't heard that episode, she says that men in black showed up at the casino, and they're weird looking. So there's a lot coming, guys. So A lot of this stuff is going to be behind a members only or a paywall, because a lot of it is a little bit sensitive. It is a little too close to home, I guess you could say, for me. Um, let's see here. Mr. Lobo says, have you seen Soft White Underbelly here on YouTube? Wish we had something like that for the paranormal. Interview people one-on-one, just asking about all the creepy stuff they've been through. Man, that's my show. No, I'm just messing with you. No, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, I have seen that. That actually was documented too on that show. There was a lady who was trying to help Bam Margera get clean. It's on Curious Case of TV show, True Crime. And I guess that show was help facilitating this mental health AI, which is, if you guys have heard, Oracle is trying to do some stuff like that. That Trump is kind of allowed to operate. But they shined a light on this AI system that can diagnose your mental health stuff by wearing these goggles that just kind of go over, kind of like the VR goggles. And Soft White Underbelly came out and was like, hey, we have this crazy woman who is really like sick, and we want to make sure that we can, find some help. Well, this lady gets involved, and basically she gets better, she gets healthy, and all of a sudden she just dies. Kind of weird circumstances. But yeah, I have a lot of interviews on this podcast that people tell some pretty crazy stories. If Hunters of the Paranormal, if you have not signed up to the Patreon or the members only, that the kind of the preview episode is episode 91, I believe, 92, and it is called The Greatest Alien Abduction Never Heard. That story and the stuff that he tells after that, this dude can find anything. Any old paranormal video, he will find it, and he has sent it to me. He has sent me multiple evidence of Bigfoot. So people ask me, Bigfoot's real. No doubt Bigfoot is real, because I know for a fact, because I've seen it. He has sent me the evidence. He has also sent the evidence to finding Bigfoot people that were on the TV show, and they were like, this is good stuff. So that's Hunters of the Paranormal here on YouTube. And like I said, as the year goes, I am looking for guests. So if you are someone who wants to come on, tell stories, and wants to promote your podcast or your radio show or your book, and you got some scary stories, let me know. My email is in the description below. I'd like to have you on. I met, it's crazy. Patrick Meekin and myself, kind of stumbled upon each other, and that was a great find for an episode. He knocked it out of the park every time. Mr. Derek Morris from Tales of the Trail knocks it out of the park every time. After Walker Paranormal, shout out those guys out of Shakota, Oklahoma, knock it out of the park. They got a lot of creepy stuff on TikTok. And that's one thing about my channel, my podcast. I like to get local, but I like to get people who not necessarily agree with what I believe in, but as I want to hear differing opinions. With Hunters of the Paranormal, with his latest episode, man, I'm kind of looking into that Venus thing he was talking about, with Bigfoot coming from Venus. So if you haven't heard that episode, no spoilers, but you might want to listen to him tell it. I don't tell it like he does. But his grandfather was abducted and asked to go to Mars, and he saw Bigfoot there. That's what I'm gonna tell you. So go listen to that episode. It's crazy. It was a great episode. There's a lot of stuff. Weird Maine Paranormal, Ryan Knights. We did 2 hours of talking about on the Patreon and on the members only. We talked about Trump's assassination. We talked about the Tesla truck blowing up. We talked about media manipulation. We talked about everything, conspiracy that was going on at the time, and kind of weird things going on when it comes to UFOs. And eventually, if you guys haven't heard, he told one of the greatest Bigfoot stories ever that I've ever heard. Literally, one of the greatest ones I've ever heard. It's up there with Mike Woolley's out of Louisiana. And it's one thing, too, about this podcast is there's a lot of stuff, guys, that I have to go back and listen to because people will tell me stories and they'll, but hey, remember this story? I'm like, I have probably told maybe close to 300 stories on this podcast. And some of the stories I have to be reminded, and then I'm like, oh, okay. And then I have to remember. And I made some mistakes on the Siege of Honobi, not the Siege of Honobi, of the Mike Woolley's Bigfoot account. I said Indiana or the Carolinas, and it was really Louisiana. Boy, people were killing me for that. They were in the comments like it's not Indiana or the Carolinas, it's Louisiana. So for the record, it was Louisiana, and he has his Bigfoot story is legendary, and I covered that here on this podcast. So there's just a lot, man. It's just so much going on. We have the Department of Education's closing. We have LeBron James. I think it's coming out that he's probably on PEDs or HGH. There's just a lot going on right now. Movies are dropping, like I mentioned before. Snow White is bombing at the box office. All these original movies that are original thought, original screenplays, they're bombing. Everything is just turning. People are talking about the housing market's going to crash. It may or may not. Everybody, and this is one thing I want to say to people who kind of fearmonger the stock market. If you guys go back and look at some quotes from all the regular everyday people in that time, they'll tell you the only people who unalived themselves because of the stock market were the rich people. That's something to think about. I know we were living in a time where, things are, you're like, man, groceries are higher than a cat's back. It's getting rough. And I see things, and and if you are a boomer or boomer era, were born in the boomer generation, I'm sorry, but you're going to catch some heat from me. Boomers, I see it all the time on social media, not understanding that when you bought a house for $50,000 in 1970 and it was like a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, that's never happening again. You lived in the greatest time ever. So when you tell people to pull up themselves by their bootstraps, or maybe you should work a few more hours down at the Dairy Queen, or maybe you should, it's probably not the best because you're in retirement age now. And the problem that you're running into is your health is failing. And guess who's taking care of you now? It's crazy. I talk to people, on my every day, I talk to somebody. And I was talking to this nurse who was telling me that the boomers are now in nursing homes. And the people taking care of them are Gen Z, people right out of high school, or people, are working in high school, and millennials, older millennials. So there's like an age gap. And then the Xers are the only ones, the Xers are in there, but they want like all the stuff that they told us growing up about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, busting through the glass ceiling. And their health is failing, and elder abuse. This is not from me. This is from someone who works in these facilities. Said that it's on the rise because there's a lot of resentment for that boomer age. I just want to put that out there. It's all alleged. I'm not indicting anybody, but that person told me that it's happening more than you think. And because a lot of the younger generations believe that the boomers and the older Xers have been very selfish and they closed the door behind them. It's all over TikTok. People talking about it, especially millennials. Right now, the job market is it is not good. I see people all the time talking about, yeah, I've applied to like 1,000 jobs, which to me, that's a little bit of cap. There's no way you apply for 1,000 jobs unless you're just auto applying to everything. And getting an email back within, I don't know, 6 hours, less than 6 hours, 3 hours, saying that, the position is no longer available, and then the position is still posted and still actively, and it shows, on Indeed, it'll tell you if they're actively or actively pursuing. Something's going on. I don't know what it is, but right now things are not the best, and I appreciate those of you who continue to support the podcast in every way, like sharing, subscribing. I had someone send me a super chat before I got on here. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, and hopefully my podcast, even though there is a little bit of political opinion sprinkled in here throughout the entire thing, I hope my podcast does kind of take you away from what's going on, even though I bring you in a little bit to it. But I hope my podcast does that for you, and I hope I hope that you guys just listen to all the stories, get scared, and go to sleep, and or listen to it. I have a lot of people who reach out and say, "I listened to it during work," and there was a stretch there. I wasn't really posting a lot of episodes, and they were telling me, "Well, when's the next one?" So I appreciate it. It keeps me going. I want to. I'm going to tell you guys this. I'm going to be fully transparent, but it has crossed my mind to end the podcast. It has. Here in the last couple months, I just and it goes along with my promoting, like promoting the episodes and trying to get as much reach as humanly possible. I'm kind of, those days are kind of over for this podcast. I'm to the point now where if you listen, you listen. And for those that listen and are fans and they reach out to me and they let me know what's going on, stories and just talking, and because I will talk to anybody, I have no problem with anybody. But editing and stuff and having 2 little kids, it has crossed my mind to end the podcast. It really has. I almost, in full transparency, I thought about it this week. I'm like, man, maybe we just ended at the 100th episode. But then I was like, well, if I do that, what am I going to do with my free time besides binge movies and hang out with my kids? I mean, and I also think about like all the episodes of doing the podcast that I'm going to miss, and the people talking about my podcast, and trying to get things worked out with sponsors, or trying to which sponsor the show, not your grandmother's, not your grandma's quilting on Facebook. I need to post a link, but if you just type it in on Facebook, it pops right up. Rugs, a lot of handmade stuff, quilting. They do a lot of backing. So if you have a quilt that doesn't have a back, they will help you do the backing of the quilting, and many of other quilting services. So just reach out over there. Not your grandma's quilting. Go check them out. They will send it to you, or they can meet you, and they Cash App, PayPal, all those online currency. I don't know about Bitcoin. I have to ask, but no, I'm just kidding. But just doing the monotonous things, and I've never really had an addictive personality. I've never really, like, if things get boring to me, I end it. I'm done. I walk away. And that's got me in trouble a lot in some aspects of my life. It's just like, oh, well, I've done everything I needed to do here. And I have definitely felt that way about the podcast in 2025. But that's not happening. We're going to keep going. We're 2.5 years in, 2.25, 2.25 in on this podcast. And there's just a lot more that I want to talk about with people. And also, too, people learn. I learn from people. There's people that will, comment on stuff and just be like, hey, maybe you should stop saying, and I can't help it. And I keep doing it. And that's okay. It's okay. But we get better. We try to get better on the podcast. The mic and the editing and my voices sounded better. if you went back and listened to episode 1 and then you listen now, I sound like a totally different cat because of this mic right here. And so I appreciate the journey. There's people that have been listening since the first episode and literally will send me a message or send me a TikTok, hey, you talked about this on episode 7, and I'm like, buddy, I don't even remember episode 7. It was that long ago. And so once we get to 100, I want to keep going. I want to keep, sharing stories. I have, like I said, there's stories that I think about a lot that I want to tell on this podcast. And like I said before, like me talking about messing with a Tulsa witch. I'm a little nervous about that. I live in this area. They still live here. They're still around. And I don't want that. I don't want that stuff. And I mentioned on the latest episode, that a lot of the things that I'm trying to learn from my podcast is trying to help my girls. My oldest is into the spooky. She likes reading those Halloween stories, those spooky stories. She likes being a little scared, and that's me. I could see myself 100%. Sitting next to my Pawpaw Tiger and my Pawpaw on my mom's side, and just ask them, hey, what about Bigfoot? What about little people? What about tie snake? What about this? What about that? What about medicine? What about, just a lot of these weird cryptids. I have it fully written out. I have about 10 stories that in one and two of them are from my pawpaw on my mom's side. Is a cryptid hyena. I have that episode written out. All I gotta do is record it. I'm waiting to kind of see. I don't want to do too much cryptid stuff because it's my lane. But I get kind of bored with. Like I said, I get bored with it. I try to mix it up, and that's why I do this random live stream to talk to people. But I have cryptids in. It's called some hyena cryptid that's been seen here in Oklahoma. And I had a brief conversation with Cryptids of the Corn, Justin over there, and we had we talked about it's a possibility for these hyenas to be out here. Now, people are mistaking them maybe for dogman because hyenas do walk on their hind legs sometimes. And it does look weird, and that could be what people are seeing. That we're seeing hyenas, and that the behavior of hyenas when they're in a pack, as to so instead of like when they're alone is different. Like when they're alone, they're more stealthy. They're not getting into more stuff. They're watching, they're observing. And if they can pounce, they will. And, there's a story that I told multiple times about out in Bigsby, Oklahoma, a young group of two girls, but a group of high school kids when I used to do Lyft or Uber back when I was back in with my early 20s. I used to kind of ride around, just pick people up. And, they were real whispering, but they were saying, yeah, and we saw this really big looking dog, but it didn't look right. And it kind of, when I was describing this to Justin, it's a hyena. No doubt they saw a hyena. So it was interesting. Getting to the chat here. Lobo says, I'm a Hispanic dude from Colorado. Your stories were the first creepy stories I've connected to. We've got a lot of similar stories and superstitions and cryptids, natives and Hispanics. Yeah, no doubt we do. Lobo, hit me up. realwarcrypod@gmail.com. I'd like to hear some of your stories. I'm working on This Is Creepy 7. So if you want some of your stories, I can be anonymous, but if you want some of your stories told, we can do that. That's coming up too. Like I said, I got like 3 or 4 different things that, trying to work up to episode 100. And all the different things that we got going on. But let's see here. Love your stories, and that's from Lance de Contras. I hope I got that right. Love your stories, and happy birthday from Owasso, Oklahoma. Shout out Owasso. I haven't heard a lot of stories out that way. I've heard some Catoosa casino stories that are a little creepy. I had an experience with a hat man in Catoosa Casino. Saw him out there that way. But I haven't really heard much out of Owasso. If you got any stories out that way, I'd like to hear them. But Let's see what else we got here. I guess we're over an hour. But there's just a lot of things that I'm trying to get better at, trying to, find people. There's someone that I'm going to try to reach out to again. I reached out to him a year ago, trying to they had a boyfriend who, basically, I think he sold his soul to the devil. She was telling me about that. She had a TikTok video, and then I reached out to her, and she said, "Yeah, I'd like to come on." Schedules couldn't get lined out, but that's another person who I need to talk to. I need to reach out to Barry, the Apache officer. He's got some great stories. Dang, people keep trying to be him. That's how famous he is out that way, and people trying to recreate his stories. So shout out to him. It's Ollie _ Barry, I believe. He's changed the name a few times, trying to keep his account, from being stolen. But shout out him. Like I said, there's just a lot of things, that's coming. But if anybody got any other questions, or if you got a question, ask it, because we're about to end this thing. Warcry Pod, X, and TikTok. Let's see here. realwarcrypod@gmail.com. Like I said, guys, no Facebook, no Instagram. Here on YouTube, if you want to send, if you can join 7-day free trial for the Patreon, and I will send you a message. So when you join on Patreon, you have the ability to choose an episode topic. So that's another thing about Patreon, that you can do. But you can join as a member. All you gotta do is sign up to Patreon, join as a free member, and then shoot me a message on there. I try to get back to everybody. And also too, if you do reach out about memberships, please specify if you're either on YouTube or Patreon. Some guy, one of the members on Patreon got mad because I thought he was talking about YouTube, and he couldn't see the video, and we got it worked out. But please make sure that you communicate that you're a Patreon member or you're a YouTube member. But all the links are down in the description below. If no one's got anything else, we're gonna get out of here. Trying to think if I'm not forgetting anything. Nope. Well, all right, guys. For the Sunday scaries, for the people who were out drinking till 4 o'clock in the morning, for those of you who were up late binge watching movies like I was. Oh, this is another thing too. Before we get out of here, if you're on TikTok and you're over the age of 30, please tell me in the comments below. Please, I'm begging you to tell me if you guys get the Indian head massager videos on TikTok. Let me know, because I ain't gonna tell you, we are washed if that's the case. If that's the case, we are washed. I mean, I'm talking about it's time to hang up everything. It's time to retire, because when those videos hit my timeline or hit my For You page, I'm asleep within 10 minutes. So let me know in the comments below if you're seeing those Indian head massager, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's just $1." And boy, they be smacking the mess out of them. They be really hitting their head like. You can even hear it too. It's like so loud, like. And man, these people just be taking it. And there's always one guy who's got the little 4-pack of grease or whatever the hell that's called, or massage oil, whatever it is. But he does this little thing where he flips it, and then he pulls it out, and he unscrews the cap, and then puts his finger in it, and it goes, and then daps it on your head. Puts me to sleep, y'all. But let me know in the comments. Man, another topic before we get out of here. I'm sorry. Who else is seeing the estranged from your child TikTok? Let me know in the comments. I'm seeing too much of that. I love my parents. Shout out mom and dad. Thank you for watching the kids today. I get on live. But with that said, guys, I appreciate you supporting the podcast. And guess what? I'm going to catch y'all on the next one.